the crazy part about it was that most businesses, and we're taught from a very young age, studying economics at school or business studies or whatever kind of subject you did at school, we're taught our features and benefits, and and it's all about competence. It's all about showing and communicating your competence.
Hey there, and welcome to the Tribe of Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Emmy Kirshner. I'm a serial entrepreneur, investor, and business coach for ambitious women who are boldly taking their business to the next level. And I believe that building a successful business isn't about working 24/7 just to merely meet a revenue goal. What it does take is a unique blend of dedication to purpose, courageous action, and frequently sheer will to overcome the odds that lead to meaningful impact and experiencing a life well lived. In each episode, you'll get to know the women and men who are unafraid to put it all on the line as they share the stories of success and failure that have made them incredible leaders and the magic they gift the world with. As you're listening, and I hope finding value, don't forget to share the Tribe of Leaders podcast with all of your other entrepreneurial friends and to follow us wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Hey, Jay, I am so super excited to have you on the show today. We met through Podcast Business School and Adam Shively, and I love, you have a podcast too, The Remarkable Project. As I just said to you before I hit record, I love your website. So share with everybody a little bit about what you do and the magic you make.
I probably have to start by saying I think you and I connecting through Adam, the man with the smoothest voice
I know, right?
in radio. I love the environment he sets up, and it's been warm with everyone I've connected with through him. So I run a company called Remarkably and host the Remarkable Project. And as the name suggests, we are all about how you build a business that people feel compelled to talk about. And I guess that has come out of my journey running a digital agency for 11 years, and then realizing that we are starting to look at marketing as almost like a commoditized piece rather than something that is really the bedrock of creating really truly good relationship with customer and solving problems. So that's really where the business sort of came out of, is how do you actually start to compound your marketing dollar and turn your customer into your strongest marketing asset. And we help companies do that.
Which I think is so cool, because when your customers love you, like they are crazy, abundantly joyful fans, and they naturally attract other customers for you. And it's like the easiest way to create that ripple effect.
Absolutely. And done really well, they become investors in your business, not financial investors, but invested in your success.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the fact that they start to connect their identity to your business and your brand, and start to create a sort of pseudo community around something that they believe in and want to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to back up for a minute too, so everybody kind of gets your backstory before we dive into all the questions I have. Why start your own business? Like, it's not the easy path, right?
Well, to be honest, I wish someone had told me that before I started, right? Because I totally agree. It has been not only a difficult path, sort of just problem solving the business stuff, but it's the way it meshes into personal and the psychological piece around how the mind games, how I came out of it. And we were talking before we hit record today, but really the story for me is that I am probably a leader before I'm an entrepreneur. And that sounds great, but really that's the diplomatic or nice way of saying is that I'm a terrible employee. And because of the fact that I'm a divergent thinker, I'm constantly looking at different ways of doing things. I'm a problem solver. I think probably that's what it was born out of, is that I felt that I could solve more problems as a business owner and running my own show than I could for somebody else. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the seed of it anyway.
Well, I align with you. I once told my parents, and my dad got it. My mom, I had to explain a little bit to her because she has been out of the workforce for a while. I said, I'm unhireable at this point in my existence. And she's like, you have all these great skills. And I'm like, I do, which means that I'm also used to calling the shots and thinking outside the box. And I laugh at, and like, that excites me. Like, I don't see that as a bad thing. It just, my entire life has been, and I think similar to you probably, my entire life has been, how do I Emmyize it? Right. So how do I do it the way that works for me? Because I don't fit into the box.
Yeah. The interesting thing though is I find it almost like kryptonite as well, is because of the fact that there are the things that are your strengths are often your weaknesses as well. And where I show up the strongest, I also need to be extremely self-aware of that. That's not necessarily how everyone wants me to show up in those kind of moments. So although I say I'm a terrible employee and those kind of things, a lot of the things that make me a terrible employee from a customer business perspective are also things that are important too. So that relationship is similar. So it's a balancing act, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So at what point were you deciding that, I'm going to not work in corporate anymore and do this thing and take the leap?
Listen, so probably the other piece of me is I love sales. I love, and not sales in a sort of, running out the door at crazy prices kind of sales, but sales in a finding creative ways to solve problems and building relationship and those kind of things. And that, I think that was bred out of my father ran his own business. He was probably in Australia I guess, one of the madmen advertising guys, back in the day where, all of the advertising and design was done through cutting up images and sticking them on and, those kind of things before the days of computer and how we do it digitally now. But, and so watching him was probably the starting point for what turned into my career. But I cut my teeth in sales, really, and really hardcore sales. And I feel like my journey prior to becoming an entrepreneur and my passion area, which is trust and how you build trusting relationships, stemmed from a pretty ugly couple of experiences selling door to door and selling B2B and using old school methods of generating leads and prospects. Phone book, and it was all managed off the back of, quantity, not quality. Let's do 100 calls this week. Let's do 100. You got to pick up 100 cards. This kind of mentality. Everyone's a number. Everything resets on the first of the month. It's crazy.
I had a very brief stint selling life insurance for a company in my 20s in the 90s. And that literally was the marketing strategy, was go through the phone book. And
it's crazy, right?
Yeah. I didn't last long. Again. So kudos to you.
But again, with every painful experience, there's a flip side to it, right? And it taught me extreme resilience. It taught me the power of relationship and how to actually compound existing so that you could avoid the cold. All of that kind of stuff was I got out of those experiences.
Yeah, there's always something.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't see it until 20 years later, but there's always something.
That's right. That's what keeps me, lets me sleep at night. Yeah, if I can look at it that way. Yeah.
Exactly. So you're starting your business, and what were some of the biggest learning experiences you've had over the years?
Probably the biggest milestone for me. I read a book years ago called The Human Brand, and it really, for me, solidified a lot of my feelings around how business should be run. And I've always felt a bit sort of round peg, square hole as far as working in a capitalist society and, I'll do this for you if you give me money. I've always felt like surely there's something richer that should come out of this. And so this book really spoke to that and took the science and a lot of the, I guess, behavioral science and what we know about trust and the components of trust and layered it across business and showed how companies do this really well and how companies do this poorly. And for me, that started for me discovering those components of trust, which I'd done a fair bit of reading on prior to that, sent me on this journey of this all comes back to trust. This everything here comes back to trust. So as far as learnings are concerned, that's probably the piece that was the biggest turning point in my career. And I think probably the only other thing would be coupling that with how products and services, how commoditized we're becoming in products and services, and that the learning that customer service is no longer something that you can put on your about page as your unique selling point anymore, because we expect that. So this idea that there's nothing unique in products and services anymore is probably one of the other kind of aha moments that I had that sort of changed the trajectory, I guess, of where my business growth and our business went.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like once you decided or you kind of understood that too, and you're so focused on creating remarkable brands, how do you do that without giving away all your secret sauce? How do you make companies stand out?
Yeah, listen, and happy to give the secret sauce. So full open book on what we're all about. But listen, the first starting point is acknowledging, and the bit that I can't sort of go into that without sort of giving an understanding of what I'm extremely passionate about. And trust is broken up really into two components. The first component being your level of competence, so your reliability, your ability to show up and do what you say you're going to do and all of that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But the second piece, and the bit that was sort of this massive aha moment for me, was the discovery that the second piece is your ability to successfully communicate your warmth of intention. And the crazy part about it was that most businesses, and we're taught from a very young age, studying economics at school or business studies or whatever kind of subject you did at school, we're taught our features and benefits, and we're taught and it's all about competence. It's all about showing and communicating your competence. The crazy part, though, is that if we are missing that level of warmth of intention but have amazing competence, we become pretty vanilla. Mm-hmm. Whereas if we're missing the competence but we have strong warmth of intention, So we're able to feel as a customer that you care about us, that you have that level of warmth, then we will forgive you for your lack of competence. And we've all been in that experience where a company doesn't do something that they should have done, but someone gets on the phone and goes, we've really stuffed up. I'm really sorry. And we forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
But the other way around, where we don't think they actually care about us, we will probably find the better price, or we'll find the slightly better product, even though it puts us through a bit of pain to actually do that. So for me, the substance of this is all to do with this level of warmth of intention. How do you successfully communicate that you care about your customer? And that comes down to creating unexpected, remarkable moments throughout your customer experience. And so everything that we do around remarkably sort of plays out into sort of three different areas. First is identifying what that is. So really getting clear on your customer intention statement. What is it, the transformation that you want to take your customer through, rather than just your vision or your purpose, which is still very company focused. It's really identifying what is the impact, that the long-term impact that we want for our customer, which I'm happy to go deeper on if you'd like. The second piece is creating unexpected, remarkable moments and building that level of word of mouth for your customer. And that's not only about creating awesome moments, but it's about creating the motivation, the opportunity. So making it simple enough that they can share it and talk about it in a simple way, the relevance to them and what they're all about, and also making that emotional connection that you so clearly want with your customer. And the last is, once you've got those first two in line, is how do we take this audience that we all use the word audience, and how do we convert that into a compounding community of advocates and create a container for them to show up, so that we can facilitate and almost productize the water cooler for them, where they become invested in our brand, and we create remarkable moments for them.
I love that, because it resonates with me so much. Two reasons. One, I think those little moments are what stay with you, right? It's not the big stuff frequently. It's this little touch, this little thing, this little acknowledgement that sticks with people. And two, this was like a decade ago, I was living out in the burbs and there were no great restaurants, and I'm a foodie. And I was like, I just want to have a remarkable experience. And apparently I said it enough so that my brother bought me a mug with the definition of remarkable on it. And he's like, this is you. He's like, this is what you're looking for. And that's part of why I so resonate with you, is because you're looking for exceptional, and not from a grandiose plan, but how to help have those tiny moments over and over and over again.
Absolutely. And it doesn't take, this is the big misconception, or the biggest myth when it comes to building a remarkable brand. It's not expensive. It's just an intentional, we are going to be a remarkable brand. That decision in itself, we're going to be customer focused, and so many businesses fall into the trap of, I get it, you've got to get sales through the door, but the long game here is that you can actually create advocates for your brand that last the test of time.
Mm-hmm. Can you give some tangible examples for people who are listening? Like, well, how do I create a remarkable moment? What would be considered a moment? And I know it's going to vary depending on industry, but.
Great. Yeah. So I'll give you, I've got two that come to mind that if you can spare me the time.
Of course.
The first one is my own, actually both of them are my own experience. The first one was and I always stumble over this because of the fact that I'm not sure whether they call it I'm from Australia, so I don't know whether they call it decks in the US, where you build a deck out the back.
A deck, yeah.
Yeah, is that the same?
Deck.
I don't know whether it's veranda or anyway. So we've got a deck out the back of our place, and we decided to get it redone. So sanded back and then oiled again and all of that kind of thing. And so we, did the standard thing where we looked through the paper and found the right person, and he ended up coming out and he did an amazing job. But it was. Did exactly what he said he would do. His competence was high. But he left, and we were happy with the result, and it was all good. 3 months later, we had a knock at the door, and he showed up with a small tin of decking oil and just said, his words were, it gives me chills thinking about it. His words were, I've been thinking about your deck, and it probably, with all the rain that we've been having, probably needs an extra little bit of oil. And I thought I'd drop this around to give it to you. Now, just in that now he can put that into, like, everyone sort of, when I tell this story, goes, oh yeah, but resource and, this and that. He can factor that tin of oil into his initial quote for doing the deck. He can also put a reminder that 3 months after he's done that he needs to pop in and drop off that can of oil. I'm not expecting it. So if he's a day late on that, that can of oil or whatever, It wouldn't matter, right? But that small moment made me a customer for life, right?
Well, and what did the can of oil cost him? $20?
Exactly. Yeah. If that, yeah.
Yeah. So that's
such a small moment. The other one, which is an interesting one because of the fact that I didn't end up being a customer of theirs. So they got $0 out of me, but I've spoken about this company for a very long time. So I decided to buy a pillow. And this pillow was because of the fact that, for some reason, I've never had any trouble sleeping up until, in the last year or two. But I decided to buy an expensive pillow because of the fact that I was starting to get a sore neck and this kind of thing. Anyway, so I had done my research, and I'd figured out who the best reviewed pillow was, and it was through a company called Koala here in Australia. Nice, every time I tell an American that name, they go, "Oh God, call an Australian company Koala." But yeah, so anyway, they're a very well-known bedding company here in Australia, and they're called Koala. Anyway, this pillow was slightly expensive, and so I had a bit of cognitive dissonance around, did I make the right decision here? But they did a 90-day trial. So if you weren't happy in 3 months, you could send it back.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always seen these return clauses as a little bit like, the guarantee that no one ends up taking up. I always sort of feel a bit, I know what that is. It's sort of, that most people won't return, and you're going to make it difficult for me to return, and, all of that kind of thing. Anyway, the pillow shows up in a box, and I go to open it. And as I'm opening the box, it starts to play me Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star in the box.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is a little gizmo that they've plugged into the side of the box. Probably cost a couple of bucks. It wasn't expensive. But that moment, I called my wife in, or I called my kids in, and my kids sat there opening the box and closing the box, just to. And then I took a video of it, and then I'm writing an email about it, an email newsletter about it, and then I'm posting it on social media, and all from this little moment that they didn't tell me about that would happen, but it was an unexpected moment. Then, tried the pillow out, and I didn't like it. Its competence was no good. However, I picked up the phone and said, listen, I'm really sorry, but I want to return this pillow. The response I got from this company was, oh, I am so sorry it hasn't worked out. All right, let me see what I can do to fast track your refund. and make make your return as seamless as possible. And so they paid for everything. They had someone, I live in a remote area, so up on top of a mountain, right? And they had someone come and pick it up from my house, and, the return, and I had the refund within 48 hours,
Wow.
And I was like, wow, this is the company they've made $0 out of me, nothing. And yet the experience is something that I will talk about and talk about and talk about because of, and so they know that they've invested in the long game. They haven't invested in the short game. They've invested in the long game of me being as big an advocate, not a customer of their company, than if I was a customer. So there's two examples of, I think, just little small moments of just investing and saying, no, actually, no, we're going to invest in long game here rather than short game, and build little moments that turn our audience into, compounding advocates for our brand.
Yeah. Never mind the PR that they're getting.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 And
like,
we're talking about it now, and I've mentioned it on my podcast. And they become, in my view, a remarkable brand. And they're not doing anything incredible. They're just showing up in a purely customer focused way with a true intention for my success in finding the right solution. Simple, really.
Right? And if we all did that, the world would be a happier place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In all areas of life, really. It's this sort of, how can we show up the best for other people? Mm-hmm. So anyway.
I want to shift gears a little bit because I'm really curious about how you, and I'm going to air quote balance because I don't really believe in balance. So how you find fluidity between running and growing your business and the podcast, and you have kids, so homeschooling your kids. And I say that in awe because I might be able to do it now, but when I had my kids in my 20s, I thought about homeschooling them, and there is no way at that point I could have homeschooled my oldest. Like, he and I are too much alike, and which is funny because we work really well together now. But it would have been just headbutting the whole time. And that's a lot. Like, that's a lot of time and a lot of different focuses.
Absolutely. I think for me, the path to balancing or finding fluidity, as you said, with all of those areas, is having a really clear understanding of what's the priority. That was the starting point for me, and the priority has always been my kids, and my family generally, and being able to. I've always seen it as a privilege to have a seat at their table. So, and having, as we all do, as far as our experiences as sons or daughters of other people, of our parents, and then going, okay, how do I want to do it differently or the same, or that kind of thing. So I've always had this premise of my family has always been first. And I know that that's sort of, everyone would say that, but when things get hard, it always comes back to that, is how do I lean back into family here. So as far as homeschooling, so once I have that priority structure down pat, a lot of it just comes down to time then, right? It comes down to early mornings rather than late nights. Those kind of things end up starting to play out because I want to spend the time with my kids in the afternoon and my kids in the evening. And so as far as the homeschooling piece is concerned, we've got a pretty tight ship when it comes to how that plays out for our kids. And it has been through empowering them. It has often been led by them, so that it doesn't become a top-down kind of relationship with my and my wife's perspective of, it is a privilege to have a seat at their table rather than the other way around. It becomes something that's a very collaborative play rather than and a learning experience rather than a teaching experience. And I probably learn more off being a parent than I have of doing any other thing in my life.
Yeah. Your parenting style sounds very similar to mine, particularly as a single mom. And I really gave my kids a voice to say, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. I don't want to do this, I do want to do that. And I found, and I sounds like you have a similar experience, that if you stop telling your kids what to do and just listen to them, like they're really intuitively brilliant and sometimes far wiser than we are.
Yeah, the biggest, you asked me, my learnings earlier, and the one thing that's really sort of shaped the way in which I've thought about all of this stuff is knowing that as humans, we're all irrational. And every decision we make is completely and utterly irrational. It's based off a bias that we've had before. We think it's logic, but it's totally emotional, and we backfill with we try and backfill with logic to justify an emotional decision. And so once you're okay or comfortable with the idea that we're all irrational, the interesting part is that kids are often cleaner when it comes to those biases than adults. They haven't got all of the hang-ups and the baggage like we do, and probably see the world in a more pure way than we do. And so you're completely right. I think that if we stop and listen, often they have the right answer, and we're coming from all of this. How will that look? What will, our biases basically get in the way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my younger guy is very introverted and played football in high school, and he did his thing during Monday through Friday, and then Saturday mornings they had practice, and then he would go to his room for the rest of the weekend, do his homework, and do nothing. And that was how he managed the work and the interaction with everybody else. And I was for a long time concerned he wasn't getting enough social activity or hanging out with the football team. And he finally explained to me, this is what he needed so he could do the thing so that he could be great at learning to play football better and exceeding in his classes. And I was like, oh, okay.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, me. And then we still tease him because he is kind of hermity in general, but it's good natured, but we all honor that that's what he needs. Like that's it. And we give him his space to do that. And I think learning that and accepting it has given me a lot of space to be accepting of my clients or other people that I'm interacting with in whatever it is they're going through, and just more empathy.
Yeah. Wherever they show up with and where they get their power from.
Yeah. How do you decide to what's your kind of decision-making process? Because I would think it's still easy to get pulled into two directions between work and family. Which thing is going to come first when it gets really busy?
Obviously, I mean, we all deal with work stress and, juggling, I guess, how we balance the two as far as, so I'm not going to pretend like I've got that sorted. But I go back to family comes first. So I prioritize the moments when I when the kids say that there's something important they'd like to show me, then it's pens down and taking that 5 minutes. Or if there's so I try and compartmentalize as much as possible. I try and create deep moments of productivity, and use time when either they're asleep or to mix and match my time with when I get to hang out with them and be with them and collaborate with them.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. I did some of that as they were older. Particularly, we would have we referred to it as connection time, but right before all the high school stuff started, they were busy after school and no longer cared that I was there. We would have connection time right after school to talk about who was doing what and where and what the best part of their days were. And then their friends started coming over and it was like, what are you grateful for? And what did you learn? And it's
cool.
Like there's cool moments, and I'm sure you experience the same thing, that like you can't get back because you didn't stop and put the pen down.
Absolutely. And again, if the priority is to always have a seat at their table, if there's a legacy piece there, which is important to me, is that that they see me as a best friend before a parent, then that requires investment and it requires time. So yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to shift gears. We're going to have to wrap up shortly. One more time. For somebody who was either thinking about starting a business or really leveling up, like, they're at wherever they're at in their business and want to expand growth, what advice would you give them?
Listen, I think often we start businesses for the wrong reasons. And I'll explain what I mean. Is that I think you're either in a job already and you feel like you could do it better, or why do I need to be employed to do this? Mm-hmm. And often, and that's a great way to get motivated to sort of start the ball rolling. But you and I both know that doesn't last. When the realities of business kick in, you realize that the actual running of a business is a job in itself, outside of the actual doing the work and being the person. So the entrepreneurial piece is really important. I would be suggesting, and I'm going to talk shop here a little bit, but really getting clear on the impact that you want to have on your customer and getting crystal clear on not just, I want to create amazing websites for my customers, but what's the so that after that? So if I was to say, I want to create amazing websites for my customers, so that what? Do you want them to, so that they can have more freedom? Do you want them so that they can, the deck builder example we gave before, a deck builder isn't award-winning decks. The intention of a deck builder could be so that families can spend more time together. Mm-hmm. If you get really crystal clear on an intention or an impact that you're going to have, the crazy part about that, or the injection of steroids you put into your business at startup phase, is incredible. Because let's take the deck builder example. If you're hanging marketing off, I want to be the best deck builder, there's a very vanilla, same kind of way in which you're going to go about marketing. It's going to be the images of the deck and the best oils and the this and the that, and maybe an award here or there and some testimonials. If you focus on, I want to bring families together and I want families to spend more time together, think about where you would show up for sponsorships. Think about where you would show, how your website would really be, how personal you may get in your videos online, how, all of that, how you employ the next person. Is this next employee going to help families spend more time together, right? Once you get really clear on that, suddenly it opens up this unique set of opportunity for incredible growth for your business. So that's probably the biggest thing for me is how do you get really clear on the impact and the transformation you're taking your customer through?
Yeah, I have to agree. And I really hadn't thought about it, but that's where I take my clients back through several years in frequently,
Right.
because they haven't thought about it. They haven't done some of that pre-work. And it takes, I think, time and some diligence to really work through and that so they can on a couple of different levels, but it really informs everything else you're doing. So thank you for that.
No worries.
Yeah, it's amazing. Jay, I love having you on. We could talk for hours.
Yeah, unpacking.
Yeah, there's so much. I feel like we just touched like a little drop in the ocean.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for people who want to connect with you and know more about you, where's the best place to do that?
Probably a good jumping off place is the Remarkably website, remarkably.com.au is make sure you put the AU at the end. There's the podcast, links to the podcast in there, a lot about what we do and how we do it, some philosophy stuff around how you should approach things. And listen, as I hope I've been today, I'm an open book. So jump onto LinkedIn and connect with me because I'd love to answer any questions, help anyone that's looking to improve their overall experience and build community.
I'm going to suggest to everybody that they go check out your website because it's amazing. And for me, it was a remarkable experience.
Oh, awesome. Great.
Yeah, it's just fun and interesting to read and unique. So I think people could learn a lot.
Great, Guns.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
Thank you so much for being a listener to the Tribe of Leaders podcast. I am so grateful for each and every episode that you tune in and listen to. And I hope that you get a ton of value that you can implement starting today. I do have just a quick favor. If you wouldn't mind hopping on to wherever it is that you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating and review, it would help us tremendously so that the Tribe of Leaders podcast can be found more easily and help inspire other entrepreneurial leaders.